just can't lose to our competition just because we have empty shelves. That's where PowerApps comes into play, that's where Flow comes into play, that's where Power BI comes into play, is they're helping us ensure proper execution, they're helping us improve on execution, they're exposing where we're not executing.
And the Power Platform allows us to try so many things at such a higher rate than we ever could before, take these best practices and the applications that really have legs and get great user adoption, and specifically create big business value and scale them globally.
My hope with more educators building their own apps is that we're able to spend more of our time in front of students teaching and more students being able to learn, because everything is either efficient or automatic, or we're creating or the students are creating, and that's really that highest level of learning.
Please welcome Corporate Vice President, Business Applications Group, James Phillips.
Good morning. Thank you. Sorry for those who are filing in. We ran a little bit late, but we're going to keep the trains running on time here this morning. We're going to spend about 75 minutes talking about the Power Platform. And it's stunning how much growth we've seen here. Hundreds and hundreds of % growth in PowerApps, in today's new announcement with Power Automate, which was Flow. Just amazing sort of community development and an embrace of this platform. Thousands and thousands and thousands of applications being created, even at single companies. It's stunning. And so we're going to talk about why today we've seen so much growth. We're going to talk to some of our customers. We're going to go through a bunch of demos and show off the capabilities. But I just wanted to put these numbers in front of you. There's a massive momentum here. And it's across companies that span every industry and the globe. So this is happening in small organizations and large organizations across retail, manufacturing, transportation, and so it really is allowing just about every company in every industry to embrace this citizen development movement and to help digitally transform their organizations. So Sayed talked this morning about all of our technologies, kind of starting with Azure and working his way up to Dynamics 365. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that as well before we get into the Power Platform, because I think it's really important that we sort of recognize how all these pieces fit together. This is a unified stack of capabilities, and we've been very intentional about doing this integration work so that you can apply the right tools at the right time and use them all together to great effect. I want to tell you sort of, why we're doing what we're doing. The vision that we had almost a decade ago now. It's amazing how time has sort of flown by. But if you sort of step back about 10 years, when we started on this journey to the cloud at Microsoft, we had a singular vision, and I'll get to that in a second, but it really ultimately sort of culminates at the application layer. I mean, all of the technology that we have eventually works its way up to applications that people use. And if you think about the applications that we've been using in business for decades and decades, I'm going to argue they're no different, right? They haven't really changed fundamentally. This is a picture of a TWA call center in 1970. And if you were to walk and look at that screen and then take someone and move them to 1990, move them to 2010, they would see more difference in hairstyles and clothing than they would on the screens. And it's not a joke. I mean, it's forms over data. Sure, in 1970, it's monochrome green or amber. In 90, it's a fat client with a Sun system running Siebel probably on the back end. In 2010, it's in a browser, SaaS delivered, but same app, literally. And so nothing has really fundamentally changed in these applications. And if the business applications are what sort of embody your business processes, if they haven't changed, then your business processes have been fundamentally unchanged as well. Very reactive. You think about Perhaps you're a manufacturer, you sell capital equipment to someone who installs maybe a milling machine in a factory. That milling machine fails. Now you've got a crisis. Someone picks up the phone, they call a service center, someone picks up the phone, now an application opens, now data starts getting created, and eventually you can react and roll someone to go bring the production line back up. Super reactive. But that's all we could do. There really wasn't another way. But there's something that's fundamentally changing, and this underlies everything that we've done at Microsoft, everything across every product and service, and that fundamental change is that data is starting to come out of everything, and it's coming first. It's coming out of every camera, it's coming out of every retail environment, it's coming out of every factory, it's coming out of products and services. All of this data is flowing, not because someone opened an app and typed something into a form, but because things are increasingly instrumented, telemetry, all of this information is flowing, and that ultimately allows businesses to transform from reactive to proactive. So you think about this, the case that we just talked about. Now you've got that milling machine in the factory sending a continuous stream of information about how it's being used, the health of the device or the milling machine. That lands in an anomaly detection model in Azure, can predict that there's an impending failure. Now someone can go do a maintenance call before the thing goes down and keep the customer happy. It really flips entirely the business process. It takes it from you have to wait until something goes wrong to predicting what's going to happen and getting in front of it. Completely different. And for the first time, applications, as Satya sort of said this morning, are becoming this data-first driven, data intelligence action. And this is happening across the entirety of the business. Satya talked about the digital feedback loop. Customers, products, people, operations, or assets, all of these four corners of your business are sending data continuously. Every time someone updates their LinkedIn profile, visits your website, that piece of equipment in the factory, on the product side, all of this streaming information that if you can harness it, harmonize it, and reason over it, you can really understand what's happening with your products and with your customer. You can then take that understanding, for example, of your customer. We demoed Customer Insights this morning. That 360-degree view of the customer can drive intelligent engagement, which of course creates even more data, which flows back into this loop, and this is happening across the entirety of the business. So this sort of frame, this was our thesis when we set out to build everything that we've built. And so if you lay this down on its side, let me just put the pieces back together now, as Satya did this morning. So first thing we did was lay down a planet-scale footprint of data center capacity that today, we enjoy more regions than AWS and GCP, Google combined. Massive scale, exabyte class data storage to capture all of this information flowing from everything. On top of that, the Azure Intelligence Platform and Application Platform allows you to take that data, turn it into insight, predictions, and then to act. On top of that, we built the Power Platform, which allows not just professional developers, but citizen developers or anyone who wants a low-code, no-code, high productivity platform to build applications to do that. On top of that, Office 365 and Dynamics 365, which is the industry's only comprehensive sort of left to right business application family. Unstructured business processes with Office, communicate, collaborate, create, with Dynamics across marketing, sales, service, operations, finance, talent, and commerce. And so holistic across the business and integrated. These are sister services that were built to work together. And then finally, on top of that, AppSource, which is our ISV marketplace where we've got tens of thousands of applications now from ISVs that have built on top of this. Now, the important part here is that this is a unified family of solutions. The Power Platform that we're going to spend time looking at today is the extensibility and customization mechanism for Dynamics 365 and Office 365. When you open up a modern SharePoint list, you can turn it into a Power App. When you're trying to enhance the capability in Dynamics 365 for sales, you can use Power Automate. Likewise, it is integrated downward into Azure, and we'll show that today. When you're creating a Power App, you never run out of gas. If there's something that you can't quite express in Power Apps, you can always drop into Azure Functions because Power Apps is natively integrated. They're aware of each other. And so this sort of stitching together into a unified platform is what Satya was talking about this morning. It's so important because I think, regardless of where you are in your journey and whatever problem you're trying to solve, we've got the ability to solve it high, but you never run off a cliff with the Microsoft Cloud. Okay, so let's now focus on the Power Platform. So today we announced the name change of Microsoft Flow to Power Automate, and we also added into Power Automate robotic process automation UI flows, the ability to not just with Flow interact with APIs, but also to interact with UIs. And by the way, in the same exact sort of framework. And so you can pull these systems together, whether they've got programmatic interfaces or not, and automate workflows. We also announced a new product that we demonstrated in Satya's keynote, Power Virtual Agents. It allows you, without writing code, to build incredibly impressive virtual agents. And we'll demo that, and we'll talk more about the capabilities there. But we're going to walk across all of these capabilities today, and we're going to do it in 4 sections. So for the next, call it hour or so, we're going to talk about how the Power Platform enables an organization to really go knock down the app backlog, to digitally transform by empowering those who are closest to the business processes to go build applications, to automate processes. We're going to talk about governance and administration, and how, unlike in the past, with a lot of these citizen platforms where you ended up with app sprawl and shadow IT, that you sort of get the best of both worlds with the Power Platform. We'll talk about the role of professional developers, because you still need them, and in fact, you need them more than ever before. And we'll talk about the intersection between the Power Platform and professional developers using Azure. And then finally, we'll have Amir Netz show us some of the latest and greatest capabilities with Power BI, and talk about the data that's being created through these applications, how you can get more value from them. So the first stanza, or the first section, we'll talk about unleashing your organization. And I'm going to do this by chatting with Ayman, who's the CIO of TruGreen. Ayman, why don't you come out and join me? Please welcome Ayman. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, thank you. So I think we met each other for the first time in April.
Yeah.
It's amazing how far you've come in just a few months.
Exactly.
So first, tell me about TruGreen so people understand.
Sure. So TruGreen is the nation's largest lawn care company. We operate also in parts of Canada. We're about $1.4 billion. We provide services from lawn care in the yard, trees and shrubs, and some pest control as well.
Fantastic, and we showed that, I think, in Satya's keynote. Yeah. So tell me a bit about sort of what you've built. You've harnessed the Power Platform. I think you're using it pretty holistically. What are you tackling? Yeah,
so it all started for us early in this year when we started working with Philippe from the Power Virtual Agent, and at the time we were set to build a chatbot to help our customers check on the balance, account balance, check on when is the next service, reschedule, and so on and so forth. And soon after that, we met in April, and at the time, James introduced me to the Catalyst team, Jeff Hall and the rest of his team, and really we started to take a different look at the Power Platform. This was really our first introduction truly into the Power Platform, and it was very clear for us at the time that the approach that Microsoft took, it wasn't necessarily the hypotheses around how you build an ecosystem. It really took the theories out of it, took it really into reality as we started to learn more and more about the Power Platform. And at the time, I think we had just finalized setting our digital transformation strategy, and looking into the Power Platform and starting to work with the team, it did help enable and unlock a lot of the capabilities that we envisioned to do as part of that platform.
Got it. And I think one of the things that has been most impressive watching you operate is just how quickly you've been able to go service the business.
Yeah.
I mean, to talk about sort of the velocity.
Yeah, I mean, so just to give you a few examples, and this is, like I said, we met back in April. Beyond the Power Virtual Agent, we have a few examples here to share with the team as well as part of the Power Platform. We built an image recognition capability, and it's based on cognitive vision, which is part of the Power Platform. And this capability is really a function out of our consumer mobile app. you literally point it at an object in your yard that you don't have any idea what could that be, whether it's weeds or insects or what have you, and it pulls out the relevant information through the AI algorithm in the background and the database on Azure Data Lake. And it would suggest for you the treatment plans. It would suggest for you if there is anything dangerous about touching that kind of object. We also built, right now, we are in the process of looking at using the same capabilities plus cognitive deciphering, if you will, of information or of data with the Bing Map API. So as you probably know, if you would call us, what we would do is we would draw a map around the surface area based on a satellite image that we pull from Bing API. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the guesswork. We're trying to stay away from us trying to measure it polygon on the screen, and we're also trying to see if we can take that image, satellite imagery, and be able to measure the surface area on our own.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there are a lot of examples here where we're even taking phishing scams on emails as well. We're taking it a little bit further beyond a classic or a traditional solution as well. So we're trying to scan our emails with some of the cognitive services as well to detect patterns that are not part of a wide, massive industries. So really a lot of exciting things.
I love your passion on this stuff.
Really, really great stuff, and thank you for your support.
Yeah. It's, every time I talk to you, I think I learned 3 new things that you're building. Great.
Absolutely.
So look, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have Charles Lamanna come out. He did some. Thank you very much, Iman. Thank you. So Charles Lamanna did a demo of some of the TruGreen capabilities in Satya's keynote. We're going to do the unabridged version here and show some of the other things that Iman just talked about. So Charles, come on out and show us TruGreen's example.
Thanks, James.
Thank you.
I think the biggest addition this time, as you'll see in a second, I have a pretty awesome stage prop.
Awesome.
So you'll see where I use that in a second. So as we saw in the keynote, there's a lot of great capabilities in terms of how TruGreen uses the Power Platform. On their website, they use that virtual agent, so you can go and actually report the issues that you're facing when you want to go make a reservation with one of their field agents. So I can do things like I have a lawn problem, identify the same types of issues that we saw in the keynote, related to the different AI backend infrastructure. The most likely reason that you'd have a lawn problem. I can say, click through this and have a very natural conversational experience, see more information from their knowledge base about what can cause those brown spots, and even actually click through and ultimately schedule an appointment. And all of that is able to happen inside of that Power Virtual Agent experience. A simple low-code, no-code offering to do everything from greetings and looking up information all the way to scheduling that appointment. And the way that Power Virtual Agent does that is with a visual designer, just like you know from the rest of the Power Platform. We have a great representation on the right-hand side over here, so you can see all the different pieces of information used inside of that chatbot. And if I go walk through the same set of information that the customer would do on the home page, I can actually use tracing, which is to go see each individual steps and how AI is deciding which direction to go in the chatbot, as well as look up the relevant information to show inside of that experience. So if I click through that, we can see those same type of options are being pulled, all very naturally inside of the Power Virtual Agent experience. And what's great is that the Power Platform works well together. So in the case of TruGreen, they use Power Automate to go integrate with their scheduling APIs. So I'm able to say, look right here, and that will automatically go out to use the over 275 data connectors available out of the box, so I can very easily schedule an appointment for at the right time for the customer in the right place. And that type of connectivity is what makes it possible to have that very rapid transformation that we see so often with the Power Platform. In just a very short period of time, you can get a project off the ground. And the really special part of this chatbot is what it does with Power Automate's brand new UI Flows capability. So for this next piece where I want to go record the fact that I've booked an appointment, I can do that using UI automation completely end-to-end. This new robotic process automation capability inside of Power Automate makes it so that you can reach every single application in your IT estate. You no longer are bound by the APIs or data connectors that we ship. If there's a UI for it, which there probably is if a human uses it, you can go use the recorder to actually kick through all those different details and not have to worry about how you integrate with a legacy system. So if I say, come here and take the email input that was provided for scheduling API, that all is available right inside of the TruGreen application. And when I do a search, that will go and look up inside the contact management application, so that I can see the relevant information, the activities, and actually paste in all the notes that are captured by that app bot. And this is really important because when an agent goes out to the home, they're now able to see all of the contacts that the customer provided inside that TruGreen website. And inside of Power Automate, this is the same visual designer that you already know and love from Microsoft Flow. Except, in addition to the API calls and the API or the AI integration that we already have, you can now use that UI flow capability to see all the different mouse clicks and keyboard strokes that you've entered and actually trigger those in the background or in the foreground using these new UI flow capabilities. And just like that, once I confirm that appointment, we can see this will fire off that UI flow that I just built. And what it will do is it'll launch the same Win32 application hosted on the same server. It'll go enter the email address that the user provided. It'll go do a search through that contact management application. I don't do anything on the computer this whole time. And enter in all the relevant notes inside the Yeah. Thank you. And this is only the first part. There's actually 3 parts to this story. Once you actually make the appointment, TruGreen has to send an agent out to your home. And for that, they use PowerApps on a mobile device. And what this PowerApp allows their agents to do is I can see all the different appointments that I have coming up and go drill into them to see where does the customer live, what TruGreen plan do they have, and one of the most compelling parts of it is how you can use AI. So using object detection and AI builder, TruGreen has made it so that their field agents can use this PowerApp to do things like detect issues on lawns. So if I go zoom into this photo, take a picture of what those spots are, don't know what those are, but hopefully AI will tell me. This will go up to the cloud and it will go look across a bunch of images that they've used, and it will tell me that there are 2 necrotic ring spots on the lawn. And all of this is done in an AI and completely automated fashion, making every single TruGreen agent better at doing their job. And that's what technology is all about, going and transforming each different piece of your company. So if I click through here, I can also see there's additional information about the necrotic ring spot. So if I want to read up about what exactly it means, it seems extremely serious, so I should be concerned. I can then go click into a live report, which will show me all the other instances of this particular issue in the area. So I can be informed about what's impacting all the customers I may serve as a TruGreen agent. And what's great is I can go record additional notes. And I can say something like, this grass has 2 necrotic spots. And this is where something's really interesting. When I click this button, over on the computer, we're going to be able to see a UI flow trigger. So if we can proactively switch over to the computer, great. And once I submit this note, it actually is going to use that same UI flow that I just built earlier, because not only can you integrate your chatbots with the new Power UI flow capabilities, you can also wire up PowerApps and any other system, even running in the background, to do the same type of thing. And what it does is it just goes and triggers that same UI flow that I was showing earlier to run on this machine. I think it's actually on the other computer, but that's fine. So if we look here, we can see that the next step of it is how that Power App was built. So that was built inside a PowerApps Studio. And for those that aren't familiar, Studio is just a mix between what you know from PowerPoint along with Excel. So a very easy way to go create a web or mobile application. And so if I were to click through these items, it would work just as it did on the iOS device and just as it would in the Android device, right here in my browser, without having to rebuild or recompile. And we can do things like that identify concerns control. This is that AI builder object detection control. We can see it right up here. And I can go select whatever AI model I want. So in this case, I trained it to detect common lawn problems, but you can go train it for a whole bunch of other different topics and all kinds of other field service and end user scenarios. And this intelligence embedded in the application is what's so important about the way we look at the Power Platform. a modern app, a modern dashboard, a modern automation, or a modern chatbot all needs to be infused with intelligence. Otherwise, it really isn't a modern experience. So that's a big focus for us across the board. And if I go down to this live report screen, we can see that on this submit button, this is actually calling that Microsoft flow to go run that UI flow that was configured earlier on. So all of this is wired up in, again, very consistent, cohesive experience. And that integration across all the different products that we have in the Power Platform is what makes it really differentiated from a low-code environment. It's not just about apps or anything else. You can bring it all together in a seamless experience. And to show that AI Builder model, this is just all you have to do to go upload those images and train it. So you'll be able to go configure AI across all of your applications. So that was the second part of the three-part story. Once you actually have users who go and say, get your TruGreen services, the next step is you want to go record how they pay you through invoices. And the way that is done is probably the most common form of business-to-business communication, which is an email with an attachment. So in this case, this is a background Power Automate step, which has a trigger for whenever a new email arrives. And this trigger is using the Office 365 Outlook APIs to integrate. So this runs entirely in the cloud. And then based on the attachment, we're going to run a prediction on it. And the prediction is going to use something called forms processing from AI Builder. And this is going to allow us to take an opaque JPEG, PNG, or PDF file and actually extract all the relevant structured information from that form and show it inside of the design experience. So, and to show how that's done, I've already uploaded 5 example forms. Because in all the cases of AI Builder, you don't have to go write Python or be a data scientist or understand machine learning. You just need to go bring examples to us, highlight the parts that you care about, and you can go actually leverage AI. So with those 5 forms that I've uploaded, each of which looks approximately something like this, has addresses, can just click next. Click Analyze here, and we can see I can highlight right on this screen in the browser all the relevant pieces I care about. Maybe I want to capture the invoice number. I want to capture this table which has the line items. I want the balance due, and I want the due date, and I want the total. And that is all it takes. You upload those files, and you can just go extract all the intelligence from it. And now that I've created that model, that's what will actually run inside of this Power Automate example. And after I've extracted all the information, I can do things like post it to teams to get an approval process so humans can know and look at it before it moves forward. And then I can go send an email. And I can even also add things like going to UI flows or other Azure services, all from the same powerful visual design surface, which we see consistently across the Power Platform. And that's, again, just the biggest takeaway I would say from this demo, which is the ability to weave together all these different capabilities, Power Virtual Agents, PowerApps, AI Builder, Power Automate, and the new UI flows together make it possible in a very rapid fashion to transform how your business operates. And after that, I'll hand it back over to James, but thank you for the time today.
Thank you, Charles. Yeah, I think it's just a great example of how all this stuff fits together. Super synergistic across all of these services. They were made to work together, and it's, when we introduced the virtual agent capability, it was stunning, in fact, what customers started to do with it. This ability to tap into Power Automate, or Flow as it was known, from the virtual agent. So you're not just talking with a customer, you're talking and acting on behalf of. It's just super powerful. One of the things that's probably non-obvious, just to sort of go back to the synergy thing, is when you build a Power Virtual Agent, when you are providing sort of keywords that you're going to respond to, what the customer will utter when they're interacting with the bot, you only have to give a few examples. It's, I would have thought, hey, it's rule-based and here are all the things but no, you provide a few examples, and because we have Bing, we understand how people express things. Billions of searches where we understand synonyms, we understand how humans ask questions. We've taken that and we've infused that into Power Automate. Sort of this hidden capability based on these things, just very powerful, and I think really shows how all of this comes together to create something that is far, far greater than the sum of the parts. Now, trying to be funny here, we talked about unleashing the organization. If you look across organizations that have adopted Power Platform at scale, hundreds and thousands of applications and dashboards and reports and flows are being built. It's just massive adoption and scale that happens pretty quickly when it lands in an organization. And that could be terrifying, frankly. You know, I'm an old guy, and I started, you know, back when DBase 2 was the tool of the day to go do low code, no code. But we've seen it over time, you know, FoxPro and Access and all of these platforms that allowed non-developers to go in very sort of high productivity terms to go build applications. The challenge was in the past, they were often running on, you know, boxes sitting under someone's desk. Someone would kick the power cord out, that person had left the company, you never understand what's happening, and it really creates a nightmare from a governance and a management perspective. And so with the Power Platform, you sort of get the best of both worlds. You've got the ability to, like, you know, we're saying long leash your organization. You're giving the organization plenty of room to go innovate, but you're still governing. And SNCF is one of the customers. So SNCF is the French National Rail System, and they're a global transportation company. One of the early sort of big adopters of the Power Platform. And early on in their journey, and we've seen this happen now, company after company after company, where the Power Platform gets in and it starts to spread, and then the IT organization comes over the top and says, great, let's get our arms around this. And they do two things typically. Let's get our arms around it, ensure that we're governing correctly, and let's go empower the organization. Let's create a center of excellence. Let's go train people, and let's really get the most out of these assets. And so to show how they're thinking about it, and frankly, how they're thinking about the role of IT, let's roll the video from SNCF.
Je suis Henri Pideau. Je suis le directeur de la performance et la transformation numérique du groupe SNCF.
Je suis Ludovic Malandra, je travaille à la direction performance et transformation numérique du groupe SNCF et je crée une synergie entre les différents métiers, notamment les SI, l'école numérique, les établissements, pour leur permettre de travailler autrement et d'apporter au groupe de nouveaux usages. Du fait qu'on est un grand groupe, on est obligé d'avoir une gouvernance et également un monitoring de tout ce qui se passe sur le terrain au niveau de la Power Platform. Et nous avons vite vu qu'il était nécessaire de créer un store pour partager notre expérience. On retrouve toutes les fonctionnalités nécessaires pour réaliser l'application. Et l'intérêt également de ces applications, c'est de mettre en avant celles qui ont du succès.
La question qu'il faut avoir en tête pour accompagner cette autonomie, c'est quel est le rôle de la DSI finalement? Et en fin de compte, on a travaillé sur un vrai positionnement de la DSI sur des thèmes très particuliers qui sont la mise à disposition de référentiels fiables, l'ouverture des systèmes d'information régaliens avec des API, de telle façon que les métiers puissent s'approprier, puissent consommer ces référentiels, ces API, de manière transversale. Et on a repositionné la stratégie de la DSI sur ces thèmes-là pour qu'ils puissent accueillir aussi cette plateforme et ne la combattent pas, je dirais, parce qu'ils auraient peur de perdre une partie de leur prérogative vis-à-vis des métiers.
All right, so you may have seen one of the applications pop up there. It's called Bougie. It's my best French impersonation. And a bougie in French is sort of a chassis, a train chassis. It's the axles and the wheels and you made it with you know, a tank or a boxcar or something like that. And so they've got a depot where they're constantly sort of creating these cars, putting them together. And there's no app for, you know, Bougie manufacturing that you can find on the App Store. And so the person who's in the depot, the person who actually does the work, built this application that allows them to go from, and these numbers are incredible, but they say they're true. It's hard to believe. They went from a 90% failure rate. So 90% of the time, they had to try multiple times to get the right match between a chassis and the car, to a 20% failure rate by using AI Builder and using a Power App to do the measurement, and it's stunning. And I think, if you think about the applications that are potentially most valuable to an organization, it really is the apps that you can't buy, that you can't find in an app store. And the Power Platform allows you to go build those, and that's why all of these opportunities that are presenting themselves are being knocked down by our customers using the Power Platform. So to show a bit about how to manage the applications, how to govern the Power Platform environment, I'm going to have Ryan Cunningham come out and demo those capabilities.
Thank you, James. Hey, everybody. You might be surprised to find, if you've been following us for a while, that I am not going to show you how to mate a chassis to a train car today or build an app to do that. Because at the scale that SNCF and many organizations like them are operating, it is no longer about one app. It's not about building an app or a business process a little bit faster. It's about hundreds of applications for thousands of users. At some organizations, an increasing number, it's about thousands of applications and tens of thousands of users. Now, sitting in a room like this, that type of scale is going to give you one of two reactions. Either you're going to be thrilled that it is finally pragmatic to start achieving digital transformation at scale in organizations. Or to James's point earlier, you're going to be terrified. Who's terrified? Be honest. Yeah, I know, I get it. But before you go running for an off switch, hear me out. I want to demo to you the most important feature of governance and administration in the Power Platform. I'm going to do it in a single click. You ready? Bam. Now we chuckle, but here's what sets Power Platform apart from every other low-code option of the past, every other shadow IT or point solution SaaS provider or other thing that's happening inside of your organization already. Everything I do on the Power Platform, as a maker, as a user, all governed and authenticated through Azure Active Directory. Planet scale, enterprise-grade identity management system. And that means that this is not in a shadow. It's not on a box under a desk. It's not sitting in a file on a local drive. Everything I do is inherently governable by default. Automatable, auditable, manageable. And all of that starts, ground zero for governance of the Power Platform, starts at the Power Platform Admin Center, where we expose a lot of that visibility just right out of the box. What resources am I utilizing across organizations? What are people doing with PowerApps? What exactly are they making and who are using those apps? All of that data exposed here right in a few clicks. I can go all the way drilling down into what apps are throwing errors and how to debug them. I can go even further than that. I can look at utilization inside of the common data service down to the API call volume. All of that exposed right here, so I can take action on it and respond when I need to. So I'm always acting as myself. I can never do anything as a user through this platform that I couldn't otherwise do at the front door of a service, and all of that is governable here in the Admin Center. But you can go further even than that. You can start to set data loss prevention policies across the hundreds of connectors that the platform exposes. And there's a lot of services here. But I can come in and create environment-specific or tenant-specific data groups. I can add SQL Server or Salesforce and say, look, this is for business data only. Never let data from these particular sources go to other sources in the platform. And I can get even more granular than that. So the manageability is just built in with tooling here. But that's not all. In fact, that's just the beginning. See, managing and governing the Power Platform at the National Railway in France is different than what it means to manage and govern the Power Platform at TruGreen Lawn Care, or at the Tacoma Public School System, or at any of the thousands of other organizations that are running PowerApps today. And so governance is inherently extensible as well. We know extensibility here. We know how to do low-code extensibility. And in fact, we've connected the entire platform to the platform itself, which is a bit meta, but it means I can use PowerApps, Power BI, and Power Automate to manage PowerApps, Power BI, and Power Automate. I want to show you some examples of how SNCF are doing exactly that inside of their organization today. You saw a hint of this in the video, but let's watch. It all started with one app, one maker, one user. You're watching 18 months of data of the spread of Power Apps and Power Platform inside of this organization. In a custom BI dashboard that SNCF are able to build and use over our admin and governance APIs to look at how adoption is progressing inside of their organization. Now this scale is staggering. Look at it spread across locations, across individual makers, across applications. But again, this is not the spread of shadow IT. This is a success story because IT is centrally not only governing this, they're encouraging it. They're serving the needs of users and the needs of their communities and upskilling their workers as they go. And they're not just watching it passively in BI. They're creating custom apps that go further than our out-of-the-box experiences and show end users exactly what apps they need to find. We talked about Bougies earlier. Let's go see if we have an app for that. Sure enough, we do. Not only are they tailoring experiences to end users, they're also automating the governance process for makers. As an individual app developer, a citizen developer in a business unit, I can go see exactly what I've made and what type of impact those apps are having, and I can interact with the IT in an automated fashion. I can go request an environment for a particular app and fill out why I need it, maybe fill out the location of my database, and if I need CDS, I can say if I need advanced capabilities, and go off and submit this to Central IT for approval. All of that automated in the back end using Power Automate. So I can set up custom governance processes that fit the needs of my organization. I can say, hey, whenever one of those requests comes through, if and only if they need the advanced support capabilities, let's kick off an approval process, pass the details of who's requesting it and what they want and why, all the way downstream. And in fact, I can even embed that approval process right into where my governance team is working. Let's say right here inside of Microsoft Teams, there it just came through this approval request that I made, and I can approve it right in line and move on. So all of that folded into the fabric of how we're already working, making it possible to manage hundreds of apps, thousands of users, hundreds of makers at scale. Now that's great for the long tail, but what about when I want to run really mission-critical workloads on Power Platform? What about when I want to roll out a single app to thousands of users and manage it in a professional DevOps process that I'm used to inside of my organization? Well, guess what? I can do that too. Azure DevOps now supports build tasks and automatable tasks for a whole range of actions across Power Platform. I can come in here and not only learn how to do DevOps at scale with Power Platform, I can use source control to actually manage my code. I can dive in here and look at the output of individual customizations and solutions. I can even diff that in source control against previous commits. I can automate pipelines across how to build either development or exports from my development environment or builds up into my production environment. And I can start to automate a whole range of tasks in DevOps across that spectrum. Let's just search for a few of the PowerApps tasks that are available here in DevOps. You can see it's a host of things, from creating environments, packaging solutions, even running deep automated quality checks across that whole spectrum of capabilities. All of that, from citizen development all the way up to professional development, running more efficiently in low code. And that's how SNCF, and again, many organizations like them, are able to scale this out, a whole spectrum of applications, many of which are used in individual departments by citizens with small numbers of users and are passively governed through data loss prevention and through monitoring, and some of which who are centrally controlled and rolled out at scale to large volumes of users by professional teams. It's the mix of those two things together, professionals and citizens working in concert, that is really driving this transformation. The IT team, Henri Pidot, the CIO, they're not catching up to this, they're leading it. They're actually creating training programs inside of the organization to actively train and encourage people to build these skills, to bring forward use cases that never before would have even come to the desk of an IT person as a request, let alone get funded to be built in traditional app development. And that's the important part of this. The scale is important, and you don't get to transform thousands of business processes a year with business as usual. It doesn't happen with a few more software engineers. It doesn't happen with one more integrator contract. It only happens when you start to think proactively about arming citizen development and Power Platform in your organization. It's working for SNCF, it's working for hundreds of other customers, and we're thrilled to see what you can do with it as well. Thank you very much. Back to you, James.
Thank you, Ryan. You know, Satya this morning in his keynote talked about 500 million applications that will be built over the coming 3 years, more than all the applications that have been built over the last 40. And this is in part how it's going to happen. You know, you've got the ability here, whether you're a professional developer or not, or a citizen developer, to, with very high productivity, go build these applications in a way that was previously not possible and certainly not governable. And so we think it's a very powerful platform. SNCF is a perfect example of how to do it, really at scale. So we're going to shift now to the third topic, sort of the role of professional developers. And I'm going to, in a second, bring out Lad, but Lad who is a professional developer at Schlumberger I met not too long ago, about a year ago. He is our biggest Power Platform advocate at Schlumberger, a professional developer. Was very much not impressed with the Power Platform or PowerApps sort of before he took a look at it. And so to talk a little bit about the role of pro dev in the Power Platform context, I'm going to have Lad come out and join me and have a conversation. Please welcome Lad.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. So first, talk about Schlumberger.
So Schlumberger, we are the world's largest oilfield services company. We have 100,000 employees in 86 countries, and we use a combination of technologies like engineering, manufacturing, and a lot of computer science to help other companies like Exxon and Shell drill and produce oil.
Got it. And so before we get to the ProDev thing, so we just came off of the governance side. So I know that Schlumberger has thousands of PowerApps. So how are you dealing with administration and governance?
Sure. So our PowerApps journey started early last year. And really it was a way for us to see if we could get our employees excited about building their own stuff. We are a company of engineers and scientists with a great hunger for technology and a lot of shadow IT, right? So we really wanted to find a way to make them digital. So flash forward over the past 18 months, we have over 9,000 PowerApps, 11,000 flows, and countless BI reports created inside what we call our innovator environment. So what is our innovative environment? This is a place where we can finally let people we used to call shadow IT, give them a place to play to really see if their ideas have value, but also have some guardrails in place so we're not out tweeting out intellectual property.
Got it.
And this is really important because we have to be able to provide some IT governance if we're going to have applications mature at the same level, but provide some freedom to let these our citizen developers try and build.
Fantastic. And so let's get to the other topic. So do we even need professional developers in this world that we're sort of entering?
It's a great question. And in fact, there's a lot of fear, I think, on low code with pro devs for this reason. And their answer is we're needed even more. If we're going to do what Satya talked about, being a tech-intensive company, we have to help our employees navigate. Let's be honest, it's hard for IT to navigate IT.
Yeah.
So we have to provide, I think, first of all, a nurturing environment to let our citizen developers connect, be together, get advanced training, share best practices. But what we can also do is, one of the biggest questions we get in our COE is provide access to data.
Yeah.
Data that seems to be locked away in our legacy applications in chains sometimes, but also give access to advanced development functionality like Azure Functions, which you'll hear about here in a minute.
Yep.
But finally, we should do what we do best. We should deploy applications at scale. It really is powerful with the Power Platform because you can take these small seeds of innovation that happen, let's say, during your employees' daily life or through a hackathon, which we'll hear about here in a minute, and scale them globally and really 10x their value. And this is really what pro dev teams do well. For us, you'll hear about an application called Get Paid that's focused on accounts receivable, right? A problem we all have. The app was built over 2 days in a hackathon with 1,000 people participating, and it was the #2 winner, actually. And now we've taken it centrally. We've provided access to data through Data Lake and through a couple Azure Functions, as well as some APIs, and now we're going to scale it globally. We've actually been asked to accelerate it in the next 2 weeks to hit the books now.
Interesting.
So it's a great story of taking something small state of innovation, and delivering it at scale through professional development.
Fantastic. Lad, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. So to have a look at the application that Lad was talking about, I'm going to invite Julie Strauss out to do a demo. Welcome, Julie, please.
Thank you. Hi. So enabling people to innovate is a key tenet with Schlumberger. As you heard Lad just say, the ability for them to enable all of their developers to amplify their skills, come together with the business, and empower their makers to accelerate their application process is super critical for their success. So I'm going to show you the Get Paid app that Lad talked about. And this is really a fantastic example of how the pro developer community comes together with the maker community at Schlumberger. And they are really transforming how they do business. They are generating a multi-million-dollar increase in the company's working capital by working together. And how did they do it? They modernized the business process of transforming disputed invoices into paid invoices. They allowed the professional developer to create APIs in the tool of their choice, expose it through Azure Functions into PowerApps, where the makers can now start to digitalize that process. So why this collaboration? You've seen how powerful that all the makers can create apps in a matter of hours using PowerApps. And honestly, we are super proud of what we can enable users to do without writing any code. But the reality is, you cannot do it all without writing code. You will hit a wall somewhere. And what we are doing, we are embracing the skill set of the professional developer, investing in tooling that will allow the developers at Schlumberger, as well as developers in other enterprises, to create Lego blocks that they can now share with the makers, with the citizen developers, allowing them to go beyond what we can do out of the box with PowerApps. So I'm going to show you two pieces of our extensibility story for the pro developer. First, I'm going to show you, to Lad's point, how we can allow the professional developers to create APIs over legacy systems, transform that using Azure Functions, and expose that inside PowerApps for the users to get access to that data that is really locked away. Then second, we are going to say, as the maker create these applications, they might run out of steam again in the UI layer if they want to pull in component that they can't really customize, that is not available out of the box. So we will pull in again upon the developer's skill set to create custom controls. So let's start here in Visual Studio, where you can see I have built my API that is connecting to that legacy account receivable system. Now, the reason I had to build an API is there were no APIs available out of the box. There are no connectors, meaning the makers can never get to that data. But you don't want to move it. You want to keep it where it is. So by developing this API, I really have the need of my pro dev skills. And because of the deep integration with Azure into VS Code, I can actually go ahead and deploy this function directly from VS Code. Now, before we go there, though, I want to take a little look at the performance monitoring I've been doing with my API inside the Azure portal. And you can see here, I might actually run into some performance challenges. For each of the get invoice API calls, it's actually taking more than a second. Now, that can be a challenge. To Lad's point, this application will go out to thousands of users. But it's a bottleneck that can be really hard for me to solve in the API layer. So that's actually where the power of the API management come into the picture. So I've gone ahead and I have onboarded this API into Azure API management. And I prepared it in here. So you can see here I have my invoices API. And what I can do with API management, I have a central location to govern and manage these APIs built by my pro developers. And it's not just this API that I built for this specific task, it's all of the APIs that my pro developers are generating for my company. So I have a central place to govern. What is particularly interesting in this case is that I will actually go ahead and I will create a policy. I want to create a caching policy that allows me to cache the response from the API to accommodate for that deficiency there in the performance. So I'll go ahead and I'll say, I will cache this call every 60 seconds. So the impact, obviously, as this API is exposed through PowerApps, each of my users hitting it will get an instant response back. So I can go in here now. Next thing I want to do, I want to export this API or the function into PowerApps. And I can use the out-of-the-box integration we have enabled where I can export this Azure function into a PowerApps API. In fact, it will show inside PowerApps as a custom connector ready to use. Now, before I go there, remember Lad said again, key is amplification. So another part of API management is allowing the developers to amplify their work through the developer portal. So Azure API management has a developer portal where all my work can be published, and as a developer, I can make my work discoverable for all my end users. So if I'm in PowerApps and I cannot find connectivity to the data source I need, I can go out here to the portal and browse and see if somebody already created an API for me to use. Now, if I was a really nice developer, and I believe I am, at least today, I actually went ahead and published that connector into PowerApps. So it's already available for me as a maker in my environment. I don't have to go search for it. So it's listed in here. So now if I change my hat and I am a maker, I will go ahead and start creating the application that will allow all of the users that has access to that application to easily see which invoices are due. So I'll go in here and insert a data control here so I can connect to my data source. I will just change the look and feel a little bit to make it more compact, and I'll go ahead and voila, this is where the custom API done by my developer meets the maker in this case. They come together right here in the UI, and the maker can start using and connecting to this API to the data source directly. So I'll go up here and I'll connect to the Get Invoices table. And you'll see in a second that I can actually go and I can get visibility into the schema of this legacy data source. Which will make it easier for me to decide which fields I want to dispose and disclose in my application. So next what I want to go do, I want to go and connect up each of the fields that I want to be working with. So I want to see the number of days that each invoice is outstanding, and I want to see the customers. But what I also want to do, it might actually be useful if I can also see the amount that is due, because that will help me prioritize. And all I have to do is copy a field and tie that into another data field from the backend system. That was pretty easy, right? So now, Schlumberger moved from 80 days of email and Excel to figuring out which invoices are overdue, to instant access to what the invoices are overdue. So they moved from 80 days of data collection to 5 days of dollar collection. So that's a pretty good investment right there. Now, we don't have to stop here. Because I have a custom connector, I can also employ the power of Power Automate. I can start be proactive. I can create flows that will call me and notify, for example, the account team and say, look, you have invoices overdue. Finance can react. Instead of going to the app, they can receive notifications when invoices are overdue. So that's powerful. So now you've seen how I could connect to data from my APIs. Next stance is looking at how can I extend my UI. Imagine in this example, it would be very compelling to associate a person with each of these line items. So what I really want is a people picker. PowerApps doesn't have a people picker. But here again, I can call upon the skills for my pro developer, and they can actually create a custom control. But what is even better, we have enabled you to take custom controls already built and use them as part of PowerApps. So I actually have a Office Fabric React control that is a people picker that was already built, that I can now reuse inside PowerApps. Actually, let me just cut this out and go, because I want to associate that with my invoice creation here. So we'll add my people picker field. So this is the React control already built for another application that I can simply reuse. And I can play the app, and I can add people here. Obviously, I'm using sample data as part. You want to hook it up to the graph so you can pull directly and associate employees. You want to take the output from this control and embed it into the form. Super powerful. So we already have a very vibrant community building controls that are out there publishing their work. So talking about amplifying. So if you're a pro developer, you're thinking about working with PowerApps, it's time to stop thinking and start doing. With that, I will hand it back to James. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So I think, you know, it's fascinating we've been talking about service-oriented architecture for at least 20 years at this point. And what Julie showed really was SOA. I mean, being able to expose building blocks, managing those through API management, and creating, as she called it, Lego blocks for the citizen developers to embrace and begin using. Again, super sort of it illustrates the ability to take all of the capabilities from Azure, from the Power Platform, and to really pull them together into a unified whole. So a lot of the Power Apps that are being built to replace paper-based processes. If you look at, so I was at Heathrow Airport just maybe a month ago, and I was visiting with someone who works in the security area of the airport, where they bring vehicles off the street, they bring them into a secure environment, they inspect them, and then they let them into the security area. That person, the security guard, built a Power App to automate. They used AI Builder to read the license plate. They automatically generate the search areas. They have to randomly generate 3 areas. And so he built this Power App that took what was a paper-based process that was rife with problems from a transcription perspective. They had a lot of issues about data quality. And because that Power App is now capturing the data and storing it in the Common Data Service, it's available for further analysis. And so Power BI really does sort of complete the loop here. We talk about automate or analyze, act, and automate. Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate. This analyze part is critical, but it creates this virtuous cycle. So you've got these applications creating data, you learn something, you create more applications and automation, and it just really spins up. So to talk about Power BI and what one of our customers is doing with the technology, I'm going to have Amir Netz come out and do one of his fun demos. Go on out.
Thank you, James.
Thanks.
Veolia is one of the customers we've been working a lot with. If you don't know Veolia from the UK, they're one of the largest wastewater and energy management companies in the world, with over 150,000 employees, serving hundreds of thousands of businesses and millions of households every day. They're going through their own transformation, and for the data from their application and business processes are being streamed to CDS and to Azure, and they're using Power BI in order to analyze the data, gain insight, and optimize their operations. What you see on the screen here is an application that is very much like the one that Truly use internally. And this is a beautiful application. It's branded with the Veolia colors and logos. It has this beautiful dashboard inside it, but it's not just dashboard. Veolia is taking advantage of the fact that you can embed into Power BI applications other kind of artifact. For example, for new employees that are just being onboarded to the application, they have this video that tells them how to use Power BI. And the documentation of the application is also available in here as a Word document, just like that, without any coding. And if the employee missed the executive review, that PowerPoint presentation is available directly within Power BI. But let's go back into the report here. And you can see a typical report. We are tracking here the main KPI Veolia is concerned about, like diversion percentage, recycling rate, and total weight. And you can see that we have here an interesting trend. We have a decline in the total weight managed by Veolia by month. There's a decline here from August to September. And as an employee, I might be wondering why. And this is where the power of AI in Power BI comes into play. I can just right-click and say, I'd like Power BI to explain the decrease from August to September. And just like that, Power BI analyzes dozens of possible combinations and tell you what is the most likely explanation. For example, in this case, we can see that most of the decrease is from the non-hazardous industrial waste. But we can have other explanation available as well. So that's great if you have the data you're looking for on the report itself. But what if you have a question that the report creator did not think about? This is where Q&A come into play. And Q&A, we just released a new visual for Q&A, this natural language processing capability just in the last few weeks. It allows users to ask in simple English questions about the data. They get here a set of suggestions auto-generated by Power BI so they can onboard easily, or they can start typing their own questions. For example, I'm going to ask to see the show me total spend. And as I do that, I immediately get the answer. I can continue asking. I can say, okay, let's break it down by place. And notice two things. First of all, I got the answer, but also you can see that we have place marked with 2 red lines. That means that Power BI doesn't really know what place is. Nowhere in the Veolia data model the word place is being mentioned. But because Power BI integrates with the Office Thesaurus, we know that place is a synonym for site, and since site is part of the Veolia data model, we can solve this query. So we can go and select site, and the question is the same one, the answer is the same one. Now, this is a Power BI visual, this Q&A, with this AI natural language. So it means that you can format it, you can theme it, and it plays with the cross-highlighting game of Power BI. So I want to see which site are sending their weight to the NHI final delivery site, and I just cross-highlight, and I can see that very easily. Let me ask a different question here. I'm going to ask sites by the lowest diversion rate. And as I do that, I can see that Westminster is the site that by far has the lowest diversion rate, and I might be interested to understand why this is happening. So for this, we are really excited to announce that next week we want to release a new AI visual that is really specializing in root cause analysis. And this is the decomposition tree. So the decomposition tree allows you to take a KPI and start breaking it down by its component. And I'm going to look here at the total spend. I'm going to first break it by site. Remember that we had this Westminster site. This is the one. And now I can continue to break it by all sorts of other dimensions. And I can do it manually. Or I can ask the AI capability of the visual to show me what is the next best breakdown to explain where we're spending money. So I'm going to go and ask for the highest value. And it tells me if you're looking for the highest value, the best way is to look at action name. And that, you can see that manual sorting by far takes most of the spend. And I can go and ask for another highest value. And again, Power BI analyzes and tell me, look at the waste. And we can see that most of the spend in Westminster goes for manual sorting of food waste. That's kind of interesting. And maybe Westminster needs some help from us, and this is where we combine action with the insight. And I can go and press the action button. What you see here on the screen is that we have embedded a full Power App application into the Power BI dashboard, which means that now I can really drive from the report action. For example, I'm going to click here on the food waste, and I'm going to fill in the site name, going to be Westminster and the waste type. And now we're going to start the process of reinforcing the work in Westminster. So I'm going to go and type in my name, and I'm going to notify the site manager that, get ready, we are coming. And we just started the business process of reinforcing. Now, what does it mean? Okay, so we're going to play a little game here. I want you all to take your phones, and we are going to go and become, for a few minutes, mock employees of Veolia. So take your phones and go to this website and sign up to become Veolia employees. So this is demoignite.com. Pull out your phones. I know you had them on your hands all the time. Yeah, you were tweeting. And take your selfie, put your first name, where you're from, and sign up. You'll be assigned to one of 4 teams. And you're going to be swiping and sorting the waste, the food waste, with the arrows on the screen. We'll do it in a moment. As you do that, as you guys are signing up, as you guys are signing up, you can see that in real time, we see the signups happening on the screen, because it's really important. As we're combining insight and action, we have to make sure that the insight are really showing at real time what's going on in the applications, in the processes that you are having. So we're investing a lot in insight, and we can see that Chris is the most common name for you guys so far. Dan is just as common. Jason's just with there. Most of you guys are coming from the North America. Some of you are coming from Europe. You can see the photos of you guys. Chris and Dan are now now 3 and 3. And we can actually, if you guys want to go to the next screen, we can actually see who's the game here. You guys start swiping, and you can see here that Miguel is, oh wow, the backstage team is 46 swipes. Each one will get exactly 60 seconds to do the most swipes. The blue team is leading. Michael here is, and Sarah is actually taking the lead here. Very good. So you can see it real time. You can see who is winning here, the production of the teams. And what you really saw together here is a beautiful example of the combination of AI and real time, bringing through the data platform and through the Power Platform, insight and action together. Thank you very much.
It's always fun to watch Amir do these demos. And so this sort of takes us through the session. So we started with sort of unleashing your organization, talked about governance, talked about the role of professional developers, and closed with data. Good, solid run through left to right the Power Platform. If you've not leveraged the Power Platform, if you're not building applications using Power BI, using Power Automate, I'd encourage you to give it a try. Incredibly powerful platform. And 2 advertisements. Number 1, if you haven't seen the 2019 release plan, Wave 2 plan for the Power Platform, it's available at this URL. And there's a free certification exam offer here that the Learn team wanted me to put up in front of you, so take a snap of the QR code. And with that, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.